comes Harden with the weirdest knockdown by Embiid.
How does this keep happening? The surprise that is the surprise that is the San Antonio Spurs again. And who is the surprise name in the MVP conversation? Nikola Jokic is incredible, and you're about to see why. And who will be your 2019 All-Star starters? Could it be that PG-13 will replace the King? That would be a surprise.
Welcome to NBA Countdown, presented by Mountain Dew Ice.
Welcome inside Studio H here in Los Angeles with the self-proclaimed inventor of the step back, Paul Pierce, yeah! And a man who knows that that's just not true, Stan Van Gundy. My name is Michelle Vito. We got a doubleheader tonight featuring 4 teams aspiring to more than just a playoff spot. It's a great Wednesday. We are overloaded with stuff, so let's run the stack. And we start with 4 words we hate to hear: Anthony Davis injury update. The brow hurt his left index finger Friday night, left his status again in doubt as the Pelicans struggle to stay afloat in a very difficult and very devastating West. And with that, I want to welcome in our good buddy Woj. What is the latest? Mr. Wojnarowski.
Michelle, I talked to Anthony Davis's agent, Rich Paul, tonight, and he tells me that Davis could return as soon as next week from this finger injury. They met with and consulted with some hand specialists today, and they're going to reevaluate him on Friday, which is the 1-week anniversary of the injury Davis suffered in Portland. Then they're going to re-examine him every 48 to 72 hours. They need to see the swelling go down. They need to see the range of motion improve. But as Paul said, originally, yesterday, the day before, he had concerns that Davis might be out all the way through the All-Star break, but that's not the case. And for New Orleans, they need him back. They're on the outside looking in the Western Conference playoff chase, and they see an opportunity here to get him back as soon as maybe late next week.
All right, so that's better news than we had first anticipated. Woj, don't go anywhere. I want to ask you guys. Pelicans seem to be stuck between a rock and a hard place. They obviously are up against it as far as wanting to keep Anthony Davis there. But if they start to fall further and further out of playoff contention, what does that do to their strategy?
Well, look, I'm not moving Anthony Davis until he tells me he's not coming back, because he'll never recover from that. And look, I don't buy that there's not talent there. You don't get in this league with all the scoring to be the 3rd best offense in the league if there's not talent around him. I've been saying it. I'm a broken record. This team's going to have to decide they want to guard somebody, and that has nothing to do with the talent around him.
This is time to show it.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, you don't just get rid of Anthony Davis. He's a generational talent, and Coach is right. They just need improved defense. They can obviously score the ball. They just need a better defensive philosophy. I mean, it's not like they don't have good defensive players. Drew Holiday, E'Twaun Moore, Anthony Davis. They have good defense of guys around them. So I just don't understand why they're not in a better position than they are today, being in the 12th slot with a guy who is considered by many a top 5 player in the league.
No question.
Alvin Gentry, I think, one of the games last week when they were not very good defensively again, he even said that at one point. He said, our guys need to either want to play defense or we'll find somebody who will. So you could hear the frustration. I think he's exactly what you're saying. They've got people.
They do. They have the people, like Paul said, and they can score the ball. There's talent there, and they've got good individual defenders. There's no reason they can't step on the gas a little bit defensively here over the second half of the year.
We're going to stick with the Western Conference, because after losing 12 of 13, the Grizzlies appear ready to start to rebuild. And we'll go back to Woj here in a second. Memphis is now, according to him, listening to offers for its 2 biggest stars, Marc Gasol and Mike Conley. Gasol has a little over $25 million left, a player option left next season. And Conley can still make $67 million of the last 2 years of that deal. This one's interesting, Woj. What happens next for Memphis?
Well, it will be interesting to see what the market looks like for both players, and that's what Memphis wanted to do between now and the trade deadline. With Marc Gasol, he can opt out of his contract at the end of this season. He's owed over $25 million next year if he wanted to opt in. So if you're going to trade for Marc Gasol, you want to know, number one, where his head is on opting in or out of the contract, and then if you want to re-sign him, which you'd likely do if you're going to give up some assets to trade for him, you're going to have to want a sense of what it's going to cost to do that. with Mike Conley, he's a younger player, 31 years old, but he'll essentially be guaranteed $67 million through 2021. And I think there's teams who are going to be willing to take that contract on and take on Mike Conley. But what's Memphis going to be able to get back in return? You know, they want what every team wants when they're trading, you know, veteran star players. They want draft picks. They want good young players. They want salary cap relief. Well, they may have to hope just to get one of those three, and teams may say, hey, we're taking out all of Conley's money. We're not looking to give you back much of value. That's what Memphis has to find out between now and the trade deadline, because they can just hold on to both of them and keep going forward for the rest of the season. They don't have to trade them.
Woj, thank you. As always, stay warm out there on the East Coast. Paul, I'll start with you. Let's just play, where should they go? What's the best possible destination for Conley first?
Right now, you know, a guy like Conley who's getting up there in age, got a big deal. You got to look at a team like Detroit. I mean, Reggie Jackson, he's been solid, but Mike Conley gives them a little more stability at the point guard. And for Mark, I think Brooklyn will be a good destination for him.
Wow.
I mean, they're a team on the rise. They may make the playoffs this year. They add another veteran center that has experience. So, I mean, that may be a good look for both of them.
I can't read your face, Stan.
No, I think those are both. It's really hard to tell because Woj has got it right. I mean, the money's what's really going to play into this, what they can get it back. I'd like to see Mike Conley go home to Indianapolis and play for the Pacers. Put him with, besides Victor Oladipo in that backcourt. And I think now they're the most overlooked team in the East anyway. They're third. They're ahead of Philly and Boston, but we talk about those teams as contenders. Add Mike Conley to Indiana, I think they'd be great. And I'd love to see Marc Gasol in Charlotte. I don't know how they do that, but I'd like them to see him to get Kimba some help there to be able to keep him around. They don't have much on their front line, particularly offensively. I'd like to see him.
That was some Eastern Conference love from both of you guys. That was very nice.
It's a little easier to win in the East.
That's fair. Our doubleheader starts out in the city of brotherly love, and we love having our pal Izzy Gutierrez on, who's reporting for us tonight from Philly. Izzy, how you doing?
Good, Michelle, and hello, Stan and Paul as well. I'm going to start off with who's definitely not playing tonight, and that's Jimmy Butler, who's going to miss his second game with a wrist injury. Brett Brown says he doesn't think it's a long-term situation, but he will miss him tonight in a couple of areas. First, late-game situations where Jimmy Butler can create and make his own shot, and also in defense against DeMar DeRozan. Now, DeMar has been struggling in January, but he's had 5 straight 20-point games against the Sixers, so Jimmy Butler would help there. Joel Embiid is still a game-time decision. He's going to go through his pregame warm-ups and everything like the same way he has the last few games, and he'll make this decision after that. Brett Brown, however, thinks he will play. Ben Simmons, who's been dealing with an upper respiratory issue, will play as well. Brett Brown said he is not 100% at all. You can see in his face that he hasn't slept much and looks weak, but he will play. And they'll probably give a little bit more responsibility to J.J. Redick and maybe some pick and rolls with him and Joel Embiid to take some of the pressure off of Ben. Michelle?
Izzy, thank you so much. I like it. Embiid keeping things mysterious. Will he, won't he? There he is. He made things not cool for Russ on Saturday, swatted the life out of James Harden on Monday. Will he play tonight against the Spurs? We have yet to see, but I guess we'll find out soon. And we're just a day away from learning who will start the All-Star game. But first, our experts here, they'll pick the best of the West and the East next.
Thick. Wow. All right, James Harden. How good has James Harden been? 20 straight games with at least 30 points. Second Spectrum helping us dive deeper on these numbers. His signature move has been the step-back three. He's made 80 step-back threes, which not only are the best in the league since December 13th, but he's hit 59 more than anybody else during that span. And he's done more than just score during this run, leading the league with 135 wide-open shots created for his teammates in the last 20 games. On the flip side, Harden's teammates have created just 5 wide-open shots for him during the streak. But is he wearing down? Something Mark Jackson said we should be concerned about. His field goal percentage has dipped from 45% in the first 3 quarters to 38% in the fourth. And he stopped the flow of Houston's offense in the fourth quarter, too, with an average touch length of 7.3 seconds. That's the highest by any player in the quarter, any quarter during the span.
It's always special, man. It's special to play in the Garden. We all know the history.
Reggie Miller, yo fault.
Reggie Miller scoring 8 points in the final 32 seconds.
MJ 55, yo fault.
And did you ask, is he back? Oh, come on.
61, yo fault.
Bryant spins, puts it up, puts it in. One of the greatest
most individual performances ever here at Madison Square Garden.
That's one of the reasons why you play the game of basketball, to be, when it's all said and done, be mentioned with the greats. Every single year you have to come back better than you were the year before and come up with a new move or a new package to keep defenders on their heels.
A lot of players, superstars say they had that garden moment. Do you feel like you've had one yet, or are you still looking for it?
I'm still looking for it.
As a kid, you always vision having a chance to play in Madison Square Garden, just being the mecca of basketball.
Mark Jackson on the call from Philly as the Sixers host the Spurs. Mark, we'll get to Philly in a moment, but I'd like to get your perspective on what James Harden is doing, because there's obviously a really good side to it and then a bad side kind of too. Aside from the fact that they've got to get healthy again, Mark, what do the Rockets need to be careful of with this scoring trend with Harden?
Well, to me, the only thing they have to be careful of is you don't want to have a worn-down, beat-up, physically drained James Harden. The guy is playing at an all-time clip, and in the discussion, in my opinion, as the greatest offensive weapon that this league has seen. He's certainly putting on all-time great numbers. The concern is overutilizing him and the demand it puts on his body. You want a fresh, healthy, whole James Harden when it matters most and puts them in position to be in the mix.
And we have seen him get fatigued later in the season. In the past, we shall see again the MVP from last year picking up where he left off this year. As promised, we're talking Sixers too, so the guy to my right, Kevin Nagandi, is here for that. Mark, don't go anywhere.
Sage trusts the process. Last time we saw the Beard, he took an L against Joel Embiid, who's listed as questionable tonight, dealing with back soreness. There he is before tonight's game up against the Spurs. Embiid has been fantastic the last couple of games out. Let's go back to Saturday versus Russell Westbrook. Not afraid on the fast break. Embiid jumping for the block, coming down hard on Russ. And then these two guys, they got a history of going back and forth. Joel, your thoughts on Russ's reaction?
I don't know why he was mad. I have no idea, but he's always in his feelings, so I have no idea.
Sixers would lose a heartbreaker against the Thunder that night, and then Monday, complete domination on both sides. Embiid and James Harden getting into it, and Harden on the drive, bumped by Embiid. Didn't like that knee there, a little too close to push. They got to be separated, and then Harden driving, get it out. Access denied. There's Embiid, and then the stare down in Philly. They loved it. Joel, your thoughts on playing the best?
I love playing against, guys that you guys might say that they are better than me. So just to prove you guys that, no, they're not. But it's fun to me.
Sixers would dominate the game 121-93, led by Embiid's MVP-type performance, 32 points, 14 rebounds. After those two games, he's now averaging 27 and 13 per this season, seeking to become the second player in franchise history to average those marks in a single season. The only other player to do so, Wilt Chamberlain. Back with Mark Jackson as he gets ready for the Sixers-Spurs game tonight. Brett Brown has had to figure out the right pace for his three superstars. Butler will miss tonight's game with a wrist injury. And as a coach, what have you noticed from Embiid's play when Butler's not on the floor?
Well, it makes it a clear-cut decision what they're trying to do night in and night out offensively. He's the first option, the second option, and the third option. And in my opinion, he should be that way. The game should not change with or without Jimmy Butler. Joel Embiid is that complete of a basketball player and that much of a force to have to, respond to as the opposition. So to me, that should be the way they consistently play and allow Butler to change, not Embiid at all.
All right, we see the energy on the floor every time he's out there. Simmons, by the way, questionable for tonight's game as he's under the weather. Mark, looking forward to the call tonight on ESPN.
Thank you.
Developing story on SportsCenter. If you were watching the end of our show yesterday, you heard our report from Adrian Wojnarowski that the Memphis Grizzlies are willing to listen to trade offers for both guard Mike Conley and center Marc Gasol. As it seems, the Grizzlies are pretty much committed to going into rebuilding mode. This, of course, would be a big blow to the fan base there in Memphis. These two have been together for a very long time. Both spoke at today's shoot-around. Listen.
Did you want to end your career as a Grizzly? And, there's not very many players get a chance to spend their whole career.
You think that up to me right now? Does it feel like it's up to me right now?
No.
No, so why even think about it? It's irrelevant. It's, you go out there and do your job. That's plain and simple. And like I said, I don't want anyone to use this as an excuse not to do so. And I don't even understand why Mike is in those talks either.
I feel just as good about being here as you know, the next person. So I have no reason to, you know, I'm not worried right now. You know, a lot can happen in a few weeks, but right now I'm just, you know, taking it in stride.
Yeah, so here's a look at what the contracts for Gasol and Conley look like after this season. A lot of money at stake here. Gasol has a player option worth over $25 million next year, while Conley's scheduled to make over $66 million in the final 2 years of his deal. The man who broke this news yesterday, Adrian Wojnarowski, joins us now here on SportsCenter. And Woj, again, Memphis seemingly ready. They've committed. They got to rebuild. But this isn't going to be easy, is it? I mean, what stands in the way of them, I guess, getting their way and trading both guys?
Well, I think for Mike Conley, it's, as you showed, the money owed him, almost $67 million through 2021. This is one of the most respected players in the league, one of the great leaders. But at 31 years old, for a team to invest that kind of money into one player, they're going to want Memphis to take back a lot of money, and Memphis may not be able to get the draft picks, the young talent they would want in return. And for Marc Gasol, the fact that he can opt out of his contract this offseason and become a free agent. So if you're going to trade for Marc Gasol, you're going to want to have an indication from him, his agent. Number one, is he going to opt in? Does he want to be a free agent? And what kind of money will it take to re-sign him? Dallas has had some relatively recent interest in Marc Gasol, and Boston in the last year or two, you know, had checked in on Gasol, but Boston's focus is on another center in the Western Conference for in trade discussions, and that's Anthony Davis. I don't think they go back down the Marc Gasol road now.
Okay, and before we move on to AD, it's interesting because Conley and Gasol, the longest tenured teammates in the league, 11 years together in Memphis. And you could tell Gasol a little annoyed at the questioning, but hey, it is the reality. As for AD, injured his finger Friday against the Blazers. What's the latest regarding, it's the index finger, right?
Right, on his non-shooting hand.
Yes.
I talked to his agent, Rich Paul of Clutch Sports tonight. He tells me that he may be back as soon as next week. Anthony Davis will be reevaluated Friday, which is 1 week from the injury. And then Paul tells me every 48 to 72 hours, they need to see the swelling go down. They need to see the range of motion improve. But there was fear that this could be a longer-term injury. He could be out through the All-Star break. But for the Pelicans, who are fighting to get back into that Western Conference playoff chase, to have Davis back as soon as next week keeps their hopes alive of getting into the postseason.
On the outside looking in now, and in order to get back in, they're going to need the services of the 5-time All-Star Anthony Davis. Adrian Wojnarowski, thank you.
Thanks, Sage.